Well, good afternoon, everyone. Your biggest challenge is to get used to my Bavarian accent. I know you have been here for the last day and a half talking about Macht, power. What is power? How can I use it? Why do I lose it? How can I gain it? Because the role of the HR leader is perhaps the most difficult than any other position. As a person who was in the military, as an academician who researched the topic, as a person who has left academia on 3 occasions to be like you, a member of the HR team, to experience the challenges, the fears, the actions that we must take, especially when we work for bosses who are not what we want them to be. And so I want to focus on 3 areas. 1, what is power? And I know you have been struggling with it. And it is a very difficult topic. And 2, what does it take to lead in today's environment? And 3, you must look at yourself, because if you know who you are, you can lead better. But I know you have been listening for the last day and a half, so I'm taking a risk. For the next 3 minutes, look at the person sitting next to you and ask or share with him, what is one lesson you learned in the last day and a half? What is one lesson you learned in the last day and a half? Do you understand me? Yeah, this is yes, this is no, and this is I am confused. So take 3 minutes, one lesson you learned that you can take with you from the last day and a half. All right? 3, 4 minutes. I want you to be noisy. Okay. Now, even though I am under time pressure, I would have loved to hear what you have to say. But the question is, why did I do this? And the reason being, we must enable people to express themselves. When an organization creates a culture of fear, people go into hiding. They do not express themselves. This is very true in the German culture. I have worked with 4 wonderful German companies. But in the German culture, sometimes it's very hard to let you know what I think. And the higher we go in the organization, the less honest the feedback becomes. So when I am an employee, you tell me what I'm doing and how am I doing and what do I have to do to get better. But as I climb up in the organization, the feedback becomes more manipulated, filtered, and dishonest. And this brings you to the picture, what is your role? Because we are in the business of change. But before we ask others to change, we must first change ourselves. We must change the way our mind works. We must change the way we see people. If we cannot do this, there is no way you can expedite the change. Number two, we are in the business of people. It doesn't matter if you are from Siemens, Mercedes-Benz, or Reve, we are in the business of people. This is our business. As a result, we must understand the human condition. And the human condition, it is the last unconquered frontier. We have reached into the space, we have developed incredible technology, but we have not conquered the human condition. And this is how you come to the picture. And number three, we are role models. From the moment you park your car and walk into the office, you are under the microscope, just as I am now under your microscope. People take cues. They look at you, the language you use, your non-verbal signals. How do you approach people? Do you ignore them? Do you embrace them? Do you make them feel significant? This is very critical that you must understand, because to be an HR leader, you cannot act randomly. So if you had a fight with your wife or your husband, you cannot bring it to work, because people look at you and the way you behave, the way you interact. Do you pay attention to the person who is cleaning the floor just the same way you pay attention to the member of the Vorstand? This is how people measure you. And it has to be authentic. This is power. It has to come from your heart. And if you believe in it, people follow. I want to skip this. What is the meaning? I wish I had more time. But what is the meaning of power? We often think that power, if I have the power, I can control. You give me the power, you put me in a position of power, and I can control. But control is an illusion. We actually don't control a lot. Our ability to control is limited. The only thing we can control is our ability to react to the situation. This is we can control. How do I react? It is the way to So we can only control our reaction. This is very important. We overestimate our ability to control and underestimate our ability to influence. You know, a lot of research has been done on chairmen and CEOs who will tell you, my ability to control is limited, especially in today's environment. You can command and control, but that is short-lived. People can vote with their feet by leaving the organization, which is good news, or they will stay in the organization because they think they have no options, but they leave their mind, they leave their brain back at home. They are there from 9 to 5, but they are not with you. So therefore, what is power? The real power is our ability to influence. It is the difference between hard power and soft power. I am not saying there is no place for hard power, but we are moving into a global environment where soft power becomes far more powerful. So what is this idea of influence? How can we, as HR managers, influence? Because that's the only power I have. Number one is to build a trusting relationship. I have seen HR heads who are very effective versus not very effective HR heads. And those who are effective, they learn how to build a trusting relationship. That if I have a trust with him, we can do a lot of things together. But if I don't have trust, if you don't have trust, there is nothing that you can do. The enemy is always inside. The enemy is not the competition. When I research and look at companies that become not so good, it is because the enemy is inside. I don't trust you, you don't trust me. We spend time looking at each other. We take the eye off the ball. So your job is to build a relationship with the business leaders that is driven by trust. And I know sometimes the HR manager has to listen to the business leader, and then the union or the labor head doesn't trust you. So we are between the rock and the hard place. The business leaders want us to do things for them, and the labor is looking at you to see how do you respond. And trust is very fragile. Once you break it, you cannot remake it. Two is this idea of respect. How do we develop respect? By understanding the other side, empathizing with the other side, knowing where the person is coming from. I have to understand the labor and the union. I have to understand the business manager. I have to understand the agenda, and I have to find a way on how I can make it happen. This is how you build credibility. So power is our ability to influence. How do I build that influence? By building a strong trust, by being respectful, and by being credible. If you have these three, the business leader begins to look at you. So how do we do it? Number one, you must run a very strong HR department. Professional HR department. Just like there is the accounting and finance and marketing and IT, you have to perceive yourself that I am running a professional department. This is not a shelter for people that the business leaders don't want, which happens in many companies. So you have to be tough on recruitment. You have to be tough on selection. My motto on selection, slow to hire, quick to fire. We do it the other way around. We are quick to hire. Looks good. The resume, wonderful. The interview is great. The recommendations are, I hired a person and 2 months later I bang my head. What a mistake I made. And it becomes costly. And if the person passes the probation period, now you're stuck with him. So be careful on how you hire. But within those 6 months, whatever the contract is, if your stomach tells you this is not the right person, move fast. Otherwise, it is a poison in the well. And you then lose credibility, you lose respect, and no longer people trust you. Number 2, this is critical in today's global environment. The business leader is limited. You have to be a strategic partner with the business leader. And I have sometimes HR managers say to me, you know what, Shalom? I am just an HR manager. I said, that is an excuse. And forgive me, I want to be a little bit provocative. You have to understand strategy. You have to understand balance sheet. You have to understand the technology. You have to be good at it. So the business leaders look at you and say, I cannot make a move without you. We have to change. The business leader must look at you and say, you are my best business partner. Yes, you have to be the supportive role. Yes, you have to worry about compensation and all those things that you do. Delegate it. Find the right people. Your job is to think strategically, to dance with the business leader, to know the business model, to know where the company is going. You make yourself almost indispensable. And there are companies that know how to do it. And third, you really are what I call a bridge builder. Most companies have silos. Silos, we don't talk to each other. We fight each other. So your role as an HR leader is to be able to connect people with the strategy, to connect culture with people, to resolve conflicts when they surface. Conflicts are like cancer. They grow silently. And your job is to watch and to see where those conflicts are. And we are not very good at dealing with conflicts. So how do I do this? Am I making sense to you? Are you with me? Thank you. So let me then come, because it comes to the individual level. In the end of the day is you with yourself. You must be honest. You have to look at the mirror. And so what are those elements? This is from years of observation, from military, from HR, from companies like GE and 3M and AT&T, companies that I had the opportunity of being part of. Number one is conviction. Is there a German word for conviction? Yes? Passion. Passion. You must look at yourself and ask yourself, do I love what I do? And if the answer is no, life is short. And no one can tell you this. This is just you with yourself. Do I really love what I do? I love teaching. It's my passion. I enjoy coaching because I'm a great believer that people want to change. They just don't know how. At the age of 12, I was diagnosed as a mentally retarded child. I was put in 3 years in a mental institution. But I never gave up on the idea that I can change. As somebody wrote an article about me, from the cuckoo nest to Harvard. Harvard was another cuckoo nest. You really have to ask yourself, is this your calling? You know, life is filled with opportunities. Is this what I love to do when you get up? Not every day, but at least 4 days a week. You say, I love what I do. You really have to believe that you are in the business of transforming people and organization. You must believe in it. You have to really commit yourself to expanding the knowledge, what you do. You have, look, HR is the most, and I'm not trying to make you feel good or give you a pep talk. HR is the most complicated job at any company. As a CEO, I know what my job is. CIO, I know what my job is. As the CFO, I know what my job is. As the HR, your job is complex because you have to appeal to many stakeholders. And so you have to look at yourself and say, do I love this? Can I really transform? Life is filled with difficulties. And the challenge for us is to overpower those difficulties. Not by complaining, not by criticizing, but looking for ways to overpower those difficulties. That's what makes life interesting. Remaining positive. A lot of research is coming out from the University of Chicago, from Northwestern University, from Johns Hopkins Medical School, that people with positive mindset, they tend to solve problems faster and better. And here is the punchline: they live longer. So why work hard and retire and then just give up? You have to convert yourself into thinking positively. Not easy, but there is no other option. And willing to really reach out. I think our job as HR leaders is to engage the mind and touch the heart. Once you touch the heart, people will do anything for you. And as Germans, I think we are very left mind oriented, very analytical. But yet my work with many German leaders, they have passion. And your job is to touch the heart, because once you do this, from the union to the business leader to the employee will want to be with you. Next one is what I call comprehension. I'll go quickly through this. In comprehension, you really need to know the landscape. I touched about it. You have to integrate culture, value, people. You have to remain flexible. You have to know the landscape. You have to know the terrain. You cannot fly blind. So as an HR head, you really have to understand your surrounding. And then competence. This is critical for us. You got to be competent not just at HR. There are 10 areas to HR: recruitment, selection, onboarding, training, deploying, performance review, coaching, compensating, succession planning, and exiting. These are the 10 elements of talent management. You really have to be very good at it. But at the same time, you really have to build a relationship with all stakeholders. You have to balance the HR demands with people skills. You have to connect the HR functions with the business needs. And you have to be the best consultant in-house. You are the best advisor that you can be, because the business leader is looking for it. This is the area where we are very weak, and that is communication. 70% of our communication is nonverbal. You make a move and people know what you think. So you really have to develop this skill. And I say communication is the Chinese. If you look at the Chinese character for communication or listening, it has 3 elements. We listen with our eyes to see the pain in her face. Somebody might be going through a divorce. Somebody might be going through a sick child. Somebody might be going through personal problems. You have to listen with your eyes to see the pain, and with your ears to hear what the person is not telling you. And most importantly, you must listen with your heart. This is the true element of EQ, empathy. Put yourself in the shoes of the person you are dealing with and walk 1 or 2 kilometers in it. Once you understand, once you listen, people will follow. I always tell executives, the best tool you can develop is your ability to listen. We live in this honest world. We live in a world that people don't listen to us. And when you come home and you want to talk about the problems, your husband or your wife say, I'm sick and tired listening to your problems. So nobody really listened to us. If you want to be powerful HR manager, you want that Macht is your ability to sit and listen. Time is the best gift you can give people. But we are so swamped with so many items that we have to follow, we don't have time. And yet, in my view, this is the best quality that HR leaders can do. Walk around, listen, get the pulse of the organization. You are the listening post. If you walk with nothing from this, this is your greatest quality. I measure people on their ability to listen. We say, listen to what the customers say. Listen what the employees are feeling. The next one is courage. This is a tough one. And no one can be blamed for not having it. In the end of the day, we have to provide for our families. But courage is an important quality of HR leader. To speak truth to power. Not easy. But that's how you build power. That I can sit with the business leader. I can sit with the senior vice president and I say, Hans, I need to be very candid with you. You are great business leaders. You know the strategy. You know what needs to be done. You are taking the company from strength to strength. There are 3 areas I need to talk to you because that's what people are saying. You are temperamental. People are afraid of you. You cut people short. And when I finish, fire me. We don't have the courage to do this. And I will tell you, 9 out of 10, if you do this, the business leaders might be angry, but will come to respect you. Because we create this honest organization, afraid to have an honest dialogue. And this is our job as HR leaders, is to speak truth to power. Otherwise, we hide. Otherwise, we tell the boss how wonderful he is. And we walk out and our heart is not harmonious. We build tension, stress, anxiety. Give honest feedback, admit mistakes, and learn from failures. We all fail. One day I was called by the CEO because I leave academia for 2-3 years to learn so I can teach better. And the CEO looked at me and said, by the end of the day, you have to submit your letter of resignation. And I said, what did I do? He says, you're moving too fast. I was angry, I was upset. But I learned from that mistake. I learned that I really have to dance with the business leader. The Chinese have a wonderful saying that failure is not falling, but it's refusing to get up. So you will fail. You will face difficulties. You will have crises that you know you have not addressed them well. Don't be hard on yourself. Just say, okay, I didn't do well, what can I learn from it? That failure and disappointment are our best coaches. And then I come to the next one, which is caring. This is important quality. As an HR head, as an OD, as a coach, whatever your job is, you must care about people. That is, invest in their emotional account. When people know you care about them, they respond. This is universal, from China to Germany. If people know you care about them, they will respond positively. I get sometimes calls from students 15 years ago. They call me up. They say, you know, Professor Saar, I forgot everything you taught. I said, why are you calling me? They said, there's one thing I remembered. Your office was always open. I could come in and close the door and just open up to tell you how difficult it was. And you just listened. Why? I really do believe that as HR people, we must care about the human being. And when we do, people respond to us. Your soft skills to influence, listen, ask, don't be impatient. Create a warm and inviting environment. Your job is to create a place where people really feel excited about being there and demonstrate compassion by your action. And the last one is character. This is, and I put this purposely, the foundation. This is your character. In the end of the day, we are measured by our character. What do I mean by character? Is to demonstrate integrity and transparency. I see HR people sometimes secretive. They have a conversation here and a different conversation there. So follow on your promises. Be reliable. Promise made, promise followed. Manage the tension between being caught between the rock and the hard place. I talked about it. Be fair with all parties and stakeholders. And last, this is not easy to do the hard and right versus the easy and wrong. In the end of the day, we are measured by our character. And employees will vote with their mind or with their feet if they know they are dealing with somebody who lacks character. How much time do I have? Wow. Can I use 5 more minutes? All right. Because this is the essence of where I want to bring you to. So think of that foundation. That's the base. Conviction, comprehension, competence, communication, courage, caring, and character. That's the base. On that lies you have to have a clear vision of why you're doing what you're doing. And on that lies what I call the balancing act. As HR leaders, we must understand this idea of balancing act. On one hand is the left side of the brain. We're very good at it, which is being formal. But the right side of the brain is being informal. Walking, talking, interacting, it is informal. A meeting with a business plan, it is formal. Systematic, you have to have a department that is systematic, but you also have to remain flexible. Clear on the goals, but also on the values. On one hand, you have to really master this idea of finance. But on the other hand, it's to be creative. It is the right side of the brain. Performance review, tough, brutal, honest. But on the other hand, I have to develop people. I have to coach them. On one hand, I have to direct. I have to command, hard power. But on the other hand, I have to coach. On the one hand, I have to stabilize the organization. On the other hand, I have to prepare the organization for change. Change is the right side of the brain. Process is critical, but innovation is really important. We must be innovative. I have to control. This is the hard power. This is command. This is control. This is the policy. But on the other hand, I have to influence. Soft power. On one hand, I got to be tough. I am not saying replace influence. I'm just saying sometimes you have to use hard power, other times we have to use soft power. Logic on one hand, emotions on the other hand. This is interesting. IQ is the left side of the brain. But EQ is just important. As HR leaders, we have to balance between being smart and being wise, compliance and commitment, and following and leading. And the real difference is to be technical, competent, and to be expert on people. This is what I tell my students at MIT. On the left side, you have to be an engineer. On the right side, you have to be a psychologist. So this is, for me, the definition between management and leadership. And I think as HR executives, we have to balance between this idea of being technically competent and also being sensitive and understanding the human conditions. So let me then complete my statement. I know I took more time than I needed to. Number one, I'm sorry. Let me go through this. Here's the one. Do I love what I do? 2, remember that P&L, profit and loss, is people and love. And there is a place for it. Organizations today are really moving into making the place a happy place. I have a CEO in China, 33-year-old, built this incredible organization listed now in NASDAQ, 3,000 employees. Every week, every employee must log on from 1 to 10 to tell how happy he was with the week. The senior management team meets Monday morning to find out where the pockets of unhappiness are and dealing with it in a constructive way. Drive good HR practices. They have positive impact on retention and performance. Work on our EQ. That is a tough one because we're passionate people. Sometimes we don't have patience. Sometimes we get just annoyed with the way people react. But this is really our test to develop our ability to deal with difficult situations. Don't get mad. Don't get even. Get what you want. Help people grow and develop. And the last one, and I would like to leave you with it, is really balance work and life. And I want to be very serious about this. A lot of research coming out. 5,000 subjects were really studied by Hopkins University over a period of 15 years to find out if we are imbalanced, we are prone to stress. We are prone to heart conditions. We develop high blood pressure. So it is important, just as I showed you the seesaw, on one hand tough, on the other hand soft. On the one hand technical, on the other hand people-oriented. We have to balance ourselves, because when we are healthy, physically, mentally, and spiritually, we can manage those difficulties. And let me end up with a story that my father used to tell me. Every time I faced a problem, my father will tell me the same story till I stopped asking him. And the story is an old village. And there's this young, smart boy who wants to prove to the oldest man that he is not smart. He catches a bird and brings the bird to the center of the village. And he looks at the wise man and says, "Wise man, I have a bird in my hands. Is it alive or dead?" And he thinks if the wise man will say the bird is dead, he will open his hands and let the bird fly away. if the wise person will say the bird is alive, he will squash it. So he shows up front of everybody, young man looking at this old person. Old person, I have a bird in my hands. Is it alive or dead? And the wise person looked at him for a second or two and said, it is in your hands. It is in your hands. Thank you very much.